Yo, welcome back everybody. I hope you guys are doing well as always. So for today's video, I'm going to be breaking down this CARSON type beat that I just made. And to give you guys a little bit of a sense of what it's going to sound like, I'm going to play a preview right now. So yeah, definitely following that new era style of Ken. Yeah, the really dark and digital style of melodies accompanied by just really fast-paced, distorted drums. So let's just hop right into FL and I'll show you guys how I made it. All right, so we're over in the FLP and I got the melody pulled up. And as you can see, we have 6 different melody patterns here. These tracks 4 and 5 are the same pattern. I just rendered it out, but I'll show you guys the MIDI when we get to that one. We're starting this melody at 150 BPM. And let's go ahead and get into the first sound. So this first sound we got is the Synth Riches preset from Sunboy and Craze High-Wraith Serum Bank. So this is what the MIDI pattern is looking like. Not much really to explain other than just like some basic chords. And then we have a bunch of different repeating notes up here. It just goes back and forth between the 2 Ds in these octaves and then the A sharp. So for this one, I added a halftime. If you guys don't know what halftime is, basically it just like plays your melody in half speed. Then I added this Rayom reverb with some pretty heavy decay, and I just turned the mix down a little bit. And then I added this EQ and just cut the lows out. Moving on to the second sound, we're in Serum again, and this is also from that High-Wraith Serum Bank. This is the Hope For synth. So this MIDI is playing basically the same like lower notes. It just has a different pattern for those top repeating notes. And the actually only difference is these 2 notes. I kept the pattern of this D note, but I just kind of added a bunch of these like stabbing little notes here. So on this one, we just have another EQ that cuts the lows out, and I actually cut the lows out of almost all of the MIDIs because I wanted to introduce a different bass line than the one that I had drawn up in the MIDI pattern. We'll see that later when I show you the brass and the bass, but yeah, it doesn't follow the MIDI notes of these 2 patterns, so that's why I kind of cut a lot of those low ends out so it wouldn't clash too much. So now here we have that brass, and as you can see, it plays on just this D note and then goes up to the G at the ends. And I'm using this brass South Low one shot from the Monarch kit by Terps and Soda. No effects on that one. Then we got another Serum, and I am using the sequencer, What the Future Holds. I don't even know where this preset is from. I just went through a bunch of different sequencers until I found this one. I guess it's from the J. Scott G library. I don't know. I think it's like a stock preset in Serum 2, but I added a bunch of effects to it to give it like a really kind of interesting sound. This is what the MIDI is looking like, and as you can see, I kept this pattern that I have in the other MIDIs, and then I just kind of rearranged some of these top notes and added in some like higher up notes. And with that, I'll play this first and then I'll go through all of the effects that I added on because it doesn't really sound anything like this MIDI looks. So here's what it all sounds like. So yeah, going over these effects, we have the EFX motions. We have this Fresh Mint preset on that. And then we have an EQ that's cutting the lows out. A lot of the lows come from that EFX motion preset just because it's kind of warping the sound, so it tends to pitch stuff down a little bit. Then we have a halftime again on this one, stock preset. We have a limiter just so nothing was kind of like peaking super crazy. And then we also just have another EQ to kind of clean up any of the remaining lows. And then that was the one I ended up just rendering it out because that EFX motions kind of plays the effects even when you're not playing that sound. So when I like rendered out the whole melody, it was playing through all of the stems and I didn't want that. So I just rendered it out in place. But yeah, next we added this little like stabbing rhythm. And I'm using another Serum preset. This one's from A Shark. His Serum is Dead Bank. It's the Harmonix 8 pluck. And you hear this in a lot of Ken Carson songs, just this like steady plucking pattern. I think it's really like kind of glow trap inspired. So that was what I added for this. And with that preset, it's gonna sound like this. And then for this last sound, we just added a bass to kind of tie everything together, give it some more low end. And in this one, I'm using the Battlefield bass from the Veil on Me Serum bank. I believe this is from his Serum 2 bank. Yeah, the Serum bank 02. And I just copied the same MIDI that I had for that brass earlier. And I just kind of left these as the kind of like concrete root notes for the whole melody. So yeah, then after that, I arranged everything. You can see in this arrangement view. Not a lot of the stuff is playing at the same time just because some of the sounds kind of overlap too much. And so I kind of wanted to have different sections here and there. But if I play this for you, you guys can hear what everything sounds like. So yeah, super Ken Carson inspired. Now I'm gonna show you guys how I did these drums. So in typical Ken fashion, a lot of the beats he uses have like a ton of different drum samples and just kind of like crazy bounces and whatnot. So I have a lot of different drum samples, so we'll just go through them one by one. So a lot of these sounds come from the new Ginseng kit and as well as my 2025 stash. So this first sound we got is from the Ginseng kit. It's the snare Hi-Fi Heartbreak. Then we got this Opium hi-hat. Then we got this Ting open hat from the 2025 stash. Then we got this Ramoa snare from the Ginseng kit. Then we got another snare, and this one is used for the snare roll at the end. And I'm using one from the Bang Tazi kit. I believe this is from the Ken Carson Deconstructed kit, but it's the Diamonds Part 2 snare. Then I added in some effects here. We have this fadeaway effects from the Ginseng kit. Then we have another effects from that same kit, the 1, 2, 3 stars effects. One thing I've learned a lot over the years of producing is how important like little elements like that can like add to a beat. Normally a lot of people just use like your typical snare, hi-hat, clap, open hat, and then call it a day. But adding just those little like perks and sound effects can really kind of like amplify your beat to the next level. Then I added this Love It perk. This is from the 2025 stash. And then the last thing before the 808s, I added this Clean open hat, also from the 2025 stash. So yeah, that's it for all of the percussion elements. Now I'm gonna show you guys the 808s, and I used 2 different 808s for this, and one of them has 2 different patterns. So I guess there's 3 different patterns in total. These first 2 are the Privacy 808 from the Bang Tazi kit. And the only difference between the 2 is that I just changed the root notes and I made these G notes into D for like the intro of the beat. So everything is just playing on one note for the intro. And then when that intro switches up into like the verse or the hooks or whatever, it introduces that G note. So I'll just go ahead and play this one so you guys can hear it. Definitely kind of like an ugly 808, but it worked for this beat, so I kept it in there. I think as long as it's punching, you're good. It doesn't need to sound like super clean and polished. That's kind of like the opposite of what these beats are supposed to sound like. So then the other 808 I added was this confetti 808, and this is also just the exact same pattern. This just plays for like the verse sections. So yeah, that's it for all the drums. We can look over at the arrangement. Like I said before with the loop, I wanted to have a bunch of different sections so the beat didn't really get boring. So like I said, I have those 2 different 808 patterns at the beginning. The 1-note one plays here, and then it switches up into the 2-note one, and then it switches again into the other 808 for the verse. And then if we look down here, like all of the percussion samples, you can see I kind of cut out certain ones here and there. So nothing is really playing all at the same time ever. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I see a lot of people always ask me like what I have on my master channels. I really don't ever use anything. I have a stock EQ if I really need to like boost or cut certain things for the entire master, but I rarely use that. And then I just have a Fruity soft clipper with these stock settings on it. And then sometimes like for this one, I'll boost the highs in this just like default mixer over here. But it's only ever like super slightly, like less than 1 dB. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this one. I hope you guys learned something or enjoyed this beat. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Make sure to like, follow, all that stuff, subscribe, you know the deal. Join the Discord, follow me on Instagram. The next video I got coming out is another Destroy Lonely video, and that beat turned out crazy. I already made it before recording this, so I'm excited to show you guys that one because that beat is crazy, and I actually added an acapella over it, and it sounds so fire. So I can't wait for you guys to hear that one. But that's gonna do it for me for this one, and I will see you guys in that next video. Peace.